What if I told you the biggest song of 1968 was not by the Beatles, Elvis Presley, or the Rolling Stones, but by a quiet guy from Alabama, whose career later became buried under one of the darkest scandals in music history? For 5 straight weeks, Bobby Goldsboro ruled America with Honey.
She was always young at heart, kinda dumb and kinda smart.
The song sold millions of copies, topped multiple charts, and became the best-selling single in the world that year. At his peak, Bobby was everywhere. He toured with Roy Orbison. He opened for the Rolling Stones. He spent time around the Beatles while Beatlemania exploded across the planet. Then suddenly, he disappeared. Not because the music stopped selling overnight, not because he quit, but because years later, a vicious public scandal completely destroyed the wholesome image that made him famous in the first place. The man who built his career on songs about love, family, and heartbreak suddenly found his name attached to accusations so disturbing they changed the way people remembered him forever. But before the lawsuits, before the headlines, before the collapse, Bobby Goldsboro was just a kid from a tiny southern town who wanted to play baseball. Robert Charles Goldsboro was born on January 18, 1941, in Marianna, Florida. Soon after, his family moved to Dothan, Alabama, a quiet town surrounded by peanut farms and cotton fields. His parents ran a small flower shop, and music was not exactly the family business. As a kid, Bobby dreamed about baseball, not singing. He wanted to become a professional player someday. He practiced constantly and loved the sport so much that people around him thought that would be his future. But there was one problem. Bobby was undersized, and deep down, he knew the odds were against him. So at 12 years old, he picked up a borrowed ukulele. That changed everything. He taught himself how to play by ear, then switched to guitar and started singing. Before long, music completely took over his life. By high school, he had joined a local band called Spider and the Webs. They played school dances, parties, and tiny local gigs all over Alabama. The pay was terrible, but the experience was priceless. After graduating in 1959, Bobby enrolled at Auburn University to study business administration. It was the safe choice, the responsible choice, but music kept pulling him back in. Then one night, Roy Orbison's tour came through town. Bobby's band opened the show. Orbison watched them perform backstage and liked what he heard so much that he offered the entire band a job on the spot as his touring backup group. No long audition, no meetings. Just one offer that changed Bobby Goldsboro's life overnight. And Bobby did not hesitate. He dropped out of college almost immediately because when Roy Orbison calls, you do not say no. For the next 3 years, Bobby Goldsboro toured the world with Roy Orbison. And this was not some small club circuit either. These were massive shows across America, Europe, and Australia with one of the biggest singers alive at the time. Night after night, Bobby stood on stage behind Orbison, watching how a real superstar controlled a crowd. He learned everything: how to pace a performance, how to build emotion into a song, how to survive the brutal schedule of constant touring. It was basically a masterclass in becoming an entertainer. But what Bobby probably did not realize at the time was that he was standing right in the middle of music history. In 1963, Roy Orbison toured with a young band from Liverpool that was just starting to create chaos everywhere they went: the Beatles. And Bobby Goldsboro was right there beside them. He later told a funny story about John Lennon struggling to see clearly during performances. Bobby suggested Lennon try contact lenses. Sounds harmless, right? Well, there was one problem. Beatles fans in the early 60s had a bizarre habit of throwing jelly beans at the stage. Hard candy smashing into your eyes while wearing early contact lenses was apparently not a great experience. Lennon gave up on them almost immediately. It is a small detail, but it shows how close Bobby was to some of the biggest names in music. He was not watching from the audience. He was backstage, on the buses, in the hotels, living inside that world while rock music exploded around him. At the same time, Bobby quietly started recording his own music. In late 1962, he released a song called Molly.
Again, Molly, so nice.
It was only a modest hit, barely cracking the Billboard charts, but it proved something important. Bobby Goldsboro could succeed outside of Roy Orbison's shadow. Then came the song that changed everything. In 1964, Bobby recorded See the Funny Little Clown.
See the funny little clown, he's hiding behind a smile.
Unlike earlier releases, this one connected immediately with listeners. The song climbed all the way to number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sold over 1 million copies. Suddenly, Bobby Goldsboro was not just that guy from Roy Orbison's band anymore. He was a star. And let me tell you this, his timing could not have been better. The British invasion was taking over America. Rock music was changing fast. Every label wanted fresh faces, and Bobby somehow managed to fit between pop, country, and soft rock all at once. He had the clean-cut image parents liked, but he also had enough charm to survive in the middle of a rapidly changing music scene. Soon he was opening shows for the Rolling Stones during their first American tour. Think about that for a second. One year, Bobby Goldsboro is playing local Alabama gigs. The next year, he is sharing stages with the Rolling Stones, while Beatlemania is swallowing the planet whole. Even crazier, Keith Richards later admitted, Bobby taught him a guitar chord he did not know. That is one of the strangest hidden facts in rock history. Over the next few years, Bobby kept stacking hit after hit. Little Things became a major success in 1965. Voodoo Woman charted soon after. It's Too Late became huge in Britain's northern soul scene. In total,
With you, little things that you say make a bird forget to sing. You isn't true like he should be. You say that you're gonna forget him.
Bobby placed 29 consecutive singles on the Billboard charts, 29 in a row. Most artists would kill for 3. But despite all that success, Bobby Goldsboro still was not a true superstar yet. He was respected, popular, consistent. But he was still missing that one massive song that changes a career forever. Then, in 1968, a songwriter named Bobby Russell walked into the studio with a song called Honey, and everything changed.
She'd been sitting there and crying over some sad and silly.
At first, nobody thought Honey would become one of the biggest songs of the decade. The lyrics were incredibly sentimental. Some critics later called it overly emotional, even cheesy. The song tells the story of a man remembering his young wife after her sudden death, reflecting on tiny moments from their life together. On paper, it almost sounded too simple to work, but Bobby Goldsboro sang it with complete sincerity. That changed everything. The recording itself was unbelievably fast. Bobby later said they cut the song in basically one take while performing in Minneapolis during a tour stop. They tried recording it again afterward, but nothing sounded better than that first emotional performance. And then, the song exploded. Honey reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 5 straight weeks. It topped the country charts. It dominated adult contemporary radio. In Australia, it knocked the Beatles out of the top spot. Worldwide, the single sold more than 5 million copies. 5 million. And this was during one of the most competitive years in music history. The Beatles were releasing Hey Jude and the White Album. The Rolling Stones were dominating rock radio. Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, and Cream were all releasing legendary music around the same time. And somehow, Bobby Goldsboro outsold all of them. That is the part people forget. For one moment in 1968, Bobby Goldsboro was bigger than everybody. The success completely transformed his career overnight. Television shows rushed to book him. He became a regular guest host on daytime programs like The Mike Douglas Show, where audiences loved his calm personality and quick humor. Then came something even bigger. In 1973, Bobby landed his own syndicated television variety series called The Bobby Goldsboro Show. The program became hugely successful and turned him into far more than just a singer. Families across America suddenly saw him as one of the safest and most wholesome entertainers on television. And honestly, that image became his superpower. While other musicians built rebellious personas, Bobby leaned hard into warmth and sincerity. He sang about family, children, heartbreak, and love. Songs like Watching Scotty Grow strengthened that image even more.
RLFQ spells mom and dad. Well, that ain't too.
The track, written by Mac Davis, became one of Bobby's final major hits and connected deeply with parents across America. But behind the scenes, Bobby was becoming something even more impressive: a businessman. In 1971, he founded House of Gold Music in Nashville. At first, it looked like just another publishing company, but over time, the catalog became incredibly valuable. The company eventually controlled rights connected to songs like Wind Beneath My Wings and Behind Closed Doors. That is not normal success. That is empire building. By the mid-1970s, Bobby Goldsboro had sold an estimated 35 million records worldwide. He was a 6-time Grammy nominee. He had performed at Carnegie Hall and toured internationally with some of the most famous artists alive. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But here is where the story starts turning, because the music industry was changing fast. Rock was getting louder. Disco was rising. Audiences wanted something different now. The soft, emotional ballads that made Bobby famous suddenly felt old-fashioned compared to what younger listeners were buying. And once an artist gets trapped inside one giant hit, escaping it becomes almost impossible. That was Bobby's problem. No matter what he released after Honey, people compared it back to that song.
Came home unexpectedly and caught her crying needlessly.
And slowly the cracks started showing. After Honey, Bobby Goldsboro never truly reached those heights again. He still had hits for a while. Watching Scotty Grow reached number 11 in 1971 and became another fan favorite.
Making a castle out of building blocks.
In Britain, Summer the First Time performed well and was later voted one of the greatest summer songs ever recorded.
He was 31 and I was 17.
But the momentum was fading. By the mid-1970s, Bobby's chart positions were collapsing. Songs that once would have been automatic hits barely scraped into the lower parts of the Billboard rankings. Younger audiences were moving toward disco, hard rock, and louder personalities. Bobby's emotional storytelling style suddenly felt like a relic from another era. And that is the brutal thing about the music business. One decade can make you a legend. The next can make people act like you never existed. But wait, this next part changes everything. Because Bobby Goldsboro's biggest career problem was no longer music. It was his personal life. Back in 1962, Bobby had married Mary Alice Watson after meeting her during spring break while attending Auburn University. Together, they built what looked like the perfect American family. They had children. Bobby's public image became deeply tied to family values, warmth, and wholesomeness. That image made him millions, and eventually, it also made the scandal far more devastating. In 1982, the marriage collapsed. The divorce that followed became incredibly ugly, with accusations flying from both sides in court. Then the story turned explosive. According to reports that later appeared in court coverage and major newspapers, Bobby's oldest daughter testified under oath that her father had molested her and one of her friends years earlier when they were children. The allegations shocked people. This was not some wild rock star known for destruction and chaos. This was Bobby Goldsboro, the man behind Honey, the guy singing emotional songs about love and family on national television.
I would know that she'd been sitting there and crying.
And suddenly, newspapers everywhere were attaching horrifying accusations to his name. The situation became even worse when court discussions reportedly referenced pornographic material found in his possession, including claims involving disturbing content. The headlines alone were enough to destroy his carefully built public image almost overnight. Now, here is the important part. Bobby Goldsboro was never criminally charged. He was never arrested. No criminal prosecution ever followed. And he publicly denied the accusations repeatedly and forcefully. He told reporters the allegations felt like somebody had ripped his heart out. He insisted he would fight those claims for the rest of his life. But in the court of public opinion, the damage was already done. Because once the public connects your name to accusations like that, the details almost stop mattering, especially for someone whose entire career depended on audiences seeing him as wholesome and trustworthy. And here is the tragedy of it all. If Bobby had built a rebellious rock star image, maybe the scandal would not have destroyed him the same way. Plenty of musicians survived drug arrests, violence, and chaos during the 70s and 80s. But Bobby Goldsboro's brand was innocence. Songs about family, television specials for kids, gentle humor, warm smiles. The scandal shattered all of it. Almost overnight, Bobby disappeared from mainstream entertainment. Concerts dried up. Television appearances stopped. The spotlight that once followed him everywhere suddenly vanished. The man who once outsold the Beatles became almost invisible. And for most artists, that would have been the end of the story. But strangely enough, Bobby Goldsboro was not finished creating. Instead of fighting to become a pop star again, Bobby Goldsboro quietly disappeared into a completely different world. And most people never noticed. In 1985, Bobby married Diane Roberts and started rebuilding his life away from the headlines. He stopped chasing chart success and focused on children's entertainment instead, which made some people uncomfortable given the accusations from the divorce case. But Bobby committed to it fully. In 1991, he created an animated special called Easter Egg Morning for the Disney Channel. Bobby wrote the story, composed the music, arranged the songs, and even voiced characters himself. The special became successful enough to air repeatedly during holiday seasons for years afterward. Then he somehow took things even further. In 1995, Bobby launched a children's series called The Swamp Critters of Lost Lagoon. The show aired on PBS and the Learning Channel for 52 episodes. And here is the insane part. Bobby wrote every script, he composed every song, he arranged the music, he played every instrument, and he voiced every single character himself. That is almost impossible for one person to do alone. Most television productions require huge teams. Bobby basically became his own animation studio. But it gets crazier. Around the mid-2000s, he started painting wildlife and landscape art seriously. At first, people thought it was just a hobby. Then galleries started displaying his work across Florida, Arizona, and Wyoming. Collectors loved it. Businesses bought entire collections. Some art critics even called him one of America's best wildlife painters. Think about how strange Bobby Goldsboro's life really became. He started as a baseball-obsessed kid in Alabama. Then he toured with Roy Orbison. Then he opened for the Rolling Stones. Then he outsold the Beatles with Honey. Then he became a television star. Then a music publisher. Then a children's animator. Then a painter. Most people cannot reinvent themselves once. Bobby did it over and over again. But no matter what he created afterward, the scandal never fully disappeared. For many people, the accusations from the divorce case permanently overshadowed everything else. The hit songs, the television success, the millions of records sold, all buried beneath one dark chapter. And yet, his story never completely faded away. Because somewhere right now, somebody is still hearing Honey for the first time. And somehow, the song still works, the sadness still hits, the voice still sounds sincere, that emotional punch still lands nearly 60 years later. One song made Bobby Goldsboro the biggest artist in the world for a brief moment in 1968. And one scandal changed the way the world remembered him forever. Today, Bobby Goldsboro lives quietly in Florida with his wife Diane, far away from the industry that once made him famous. He rarely gives interviews. He does not chase headlines. He mostly stays out of public view, which honestly feels fitting for a man whose career became split into two completely different stories. On one side, you have the superstar. The guy who toured with Roy Orbison, opened for the Rolling Stones, spent time around the Beatles, and somehow released the biggest selling single in the world during one of the greatest years in music history. A singer who sold more than 35 million records worldwide. A songwriter whose music earned millions of radio plays. A television personality trusted by families across America. But on the other side, you have the scandal, the accusations, the courtroom battle that shattered the wholesome image everything else depended on. And that is what makes Bobby Goldsboro's story so complicated. Because unlike many fallen celebrities, his downfall was not simple. It was not just drugs, bankruptcy, or disappearing trends. His legacy became tangled in something far darker and far more uncomfortable. Yet, despite all of that, the music survived. Honey still gets played decades later. Watching Scotty grow still resonates with parents, and people still debate whether Bobby Goldsboro was unfairly erased from music history, or whether the scandal permanently changed how his career should be remembered. Maybe the strangest part of all is this: for most artists, one successful career would be enough. Bobby Goldsboro somehow lived several completely different lives inside one lifetime. And whether people remember him as a legendary singer, a disgraced celebrity, or an endlessly creative artist who kept reinventing himself, one thing is impossible to deny. For a brief moment in 1968, Bobby Goldsboro stood on top of the music world, and almost nobody saw the fall coming.